Let me ask you something nobody ever says out loud. Why do some people stay broke, even when they're not poor? Not broke as in no money. Broke as in, the money comes, and then it's gone. And the cycle repeats. And somehow, somewhere in the back of their mind, they've already accepted that this is just how it is for them. You ever felt that? That quiet resignation that sits underneath the hustle? Because I did. And what I eventually realized had nothing to do with income. Nothing to do with opportunity. It had to do with something older. Something inherited. Something that most people carry without ever knowing it has a name. It's called the psychology of the poor man child. And it's not about your bank account. It's about the version of yourself that was built, quietly, without your permission, long before you ever made your first dollar. That version is still making decisions for you today. Nobody teaches you this in school. Nobody sits you down and says, "Hey, the way you think about money was handed to you before you were old enough to question it." But that's exactly what happened. Think about the house you grew up in. Not the size of it. Not whether it had 2 floors or 1. Think about the energy in that house when money was the subject. Was it tense? Did voices lower or rise? Did people avoid the topic entirely, like talking about it would somehow make things worse? That silence. That tension. That avoidance. You absorbed all of it. Children don't learn about money through textbooks. They learn through observation. Through the fights they pretended not to hear. Through the sighs when the bills arrived. Through the way their parents' shoulders dropped every time someone mentioned rent. And here's the brutal part, you didn't just observe it. You internalized it. You built a whole framework around it. Unconsciously. Automatically. The way a tree grows toward light, except in this case, the light was survival. Not abundance. Survival. And a mind built for survival doesn't know how to think in terms of growth. It knows how to protect. How to shrink. How to make do. That's not weakness. That was intelligence, for a child in that environment. The problem is, you're not a child anymore. But that framework? It came with you. There's a script running in your head. You didn't write it. But you've been following it. Money doesn't grow on trees. Rich people are greedy. We're not the kind of people who have things like that. Don't get too comfortable. Sound familiar? These aren't just phrases. They're instructions. And at some point in your childhood, they stopped being things you heard, and became things you believed. Things you are. And here's where it gets interesting. Because that script doesn't show up as a voice in your head telling you to stay broke. It's far more subtle than that. It shows up as the reason you don't negotiate your salary. It shows up as the discomfort you feel when someone asks how much you make. It shows up as the guilt, actual guilt, when you spend money on yourself. Like you don't deserve it. Like something bad is going to happen if you allow yourself to have more than enough. That guilt is not random. That guilt has a history. Somewhere along the way, abundance became associated with danger. With pride. With becoming someone your family wouldn't recognize. And the deepest fear, the one nobody talks about, is not failure. It's success. And what it might cost you in belonging. Because if everyone around you stayed at a certain level, and you rise, what does that make you? Different. Separate. Maybe even threatening. So the script keeps you safe. Keeps you close. Keeps you small. And you follow it. Not because you're weak. Because you're loyal. Here's something that took me a long time to understand. You don't just have a relationship with money. You have an identity built around it. An identity is the most powerful force in human behavior. More powerful than discipline. More powerful than motivation. More powerful than any financial strategy you'll ever read in a book. Because here's what happens, when your identity says, "I'm not someone who has money," every decision you make will unconsciously confirm that belief. You'll find a way to spend what you save. You'll find a reason to not take the opportunity. You'll self-sabotage at the exact moment things start to work, not because you want to fail, but because success feels foreign. And the mind doesn't trust foreign. The mind trusts familiar. Even when familiar is painful. Think about that for a second. There are people who win the lottery, real money, life-changing money, and within 5 years, they're back to where they started. Not because they're stupid. Because their identity never changed. The money arrived, but the mind was still operating on the old script. And they unconsciously spent, gave away, lost, until the outside world matched the inside world again. That's not bad luck. That's identity doing exactly what it's designed to do. Keeping you consistent with who you believe you are. So the question is never really, how do I make more money? The real question is, who do I believe I am? Because your bank account is just a mirror. And most people are arguing with the reflection instead of looking at what's standing in front of it. Let's talk about something nobody in the finance world wants to admit. Money is emotional. Completely, entirely, deeply emotional. Not logical. Not mathematical. Not rational. Emotional. And the poor man-child, that version of you that was built in survival mode, he doesn't make financial decisions with his mind. He makes them with his nervous system. When there's money available, he spends it. Fast. Because somewhere deep down, holding on to money feels unsafe. Like it might disappear anyway. Like something is always coming to take it. So better to use it now, feel something now, control something now, before life does what it always does and takes it away. That's not irresponsibility. That's a trauma response wearing the mask of a lifestyle. And it goes the other way too. Some people hoard. Hold on so tight that money becomes a form of control, the one thing in their life they can actually grip. They save obsessively but never invest, never grow, never use. Because releasing money feels like losing safety. Two completely opposite behaviors. Same root. Same wound. Whether you spend too freely or hold on too tightly, if money triggers an emotional response that bypasses your rational mind, you're still operating from that old place. The wealthy don't feel that charge. Not because they're cold. Because they've built a different relationship with money over time. They see it as a tool. Neutral. Movable. Something that works for them. But when you grew up watching money cause pain, arguments, stress, shame, neutrality was never an option. Money became charged. And charged things are hard to handle with steady hands. So when does it actually change? Not when you get a raise. Not when you land the better job. Not even when you finally start saving consistently. It changes the moment you decide to look at the script. Not fight it. Not shame yourself for having it. Just look at it. Honestly. With the kind of clarity that only comes when you stop running. Because here's what I've noticed, and this is something that took years to understand. The people who truly change their financial lives don't do it by learning more strategies. They do it by becoming honest about their patterns. They sit down one day and they say, why do I always do this? Why does it always end up the same way? What is it in me that keeps recreating this? That question, that single, quiet, uncomfortable question, is worth more than any budget spreadsheet ever created. Because the spreadsheet addresses the symptom. The question goes to the root. And roots are stubborn. They don't move easily. Especially when they've been growing for 20, 30 years underground. But they do move. Slowly. With consistent pressure. With awareness applied daily, not just in moments of crisis. You start noticing the script when it runs. You start catching yourself mid-decision and asking, is this me choosing? Or is this the 7-year-old version of me reacting? That pause. That half second of awareness between impulse and action. That is where everything begins to change. Not in the grand gestures. Not in the dramatic turning points. In the small, quiet moments where you choose differently than you were programmed to. One decision at a time. One day at a time. A completely different life gets built. And it doesn't look like a revolution from the inside. It looks like a Tuesday where you made a slightly better choice than you did last Tuesday. That's how real change moves. Quietly. Persistently. underneath the surface, until one day you look back and you can barely recognize who you used to be. If you're still here with me, and I mean really here, not just playing the video in the background while you scroll, then I want to take a second and say something genuine. Hit that subscribe button and come back every day. Not because we post content. Because we're building something here. A community of people who are done sleepwalking through their financial lives. People who are willing to ask the harder questions. And if you're that kind of person, and I think you are, otherwise you would have clicked away a long time ago, then you belong here. Now let me ask you something. What if the version of you that finally breaks the cycle is closer than you think? Not years away. Not after the next raise or the next opportunity or the next fresh start on January 1st. What if the distance between who you are and who you're capable of being isn't measured in time, but in honesty? Because here's the thing nobody tells you about the poor man-child psychology. It doesn't disappear when you make more money. It doesn't dissolve when life gets easier. It waits. Patient. Quiet. Ready to resurface the moment the pressure returns. The only way out is through. Through the awareness. Through the discomfort of seeing yourself clearly. Through the willingness to grieve the childhood you had, and then, gently, firmly, decide that it stops here. Not because you're angry at where you came from, but because you respect where you're going. You cannot carry every inheritance forward. Some things were given to you out of love, but they were never meant to be permanent. They were survival tools for a season that has already ended. The season has ended. You just have to be willing to put the old tools down. You came into this world with nothing. No script. No fear. No ceiling on what you believed was possible for you. Someone handed you those things later. Quietly. Without asking permission. And you carried them the way you carry something heavy for so long that you forget you're carrying it. You just think that's how walking feels. But it's not. There are people out there who walk lighter. Not because life was kinder to them. Not because they were born into the right family or the right zip code. But because at some point, some ordinary, unremarkable Tuesday, they decided to set the weight down. And they didn't announce it. They didn't post about it. They just stopped carrying what was never theirs to carry in the first place. That's available to you. Not tomorrow. Right now. In the way you finish watching this video and decide what the next hour looks like. In the way you look at your finances this week, not with shame, not with panic, but with the steady eyes of someone who finally understands what they're dealing with. The poor man-child inside you isn't your enemy. He kept you alive. He deserves your compassion. But he doesn't get to make your decisions anymore. There's a verse that has stayed with me through a lot of seasons of life. Romans 12 verse 2, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Not your income. Your mind. That's where it starts. That's where it has always started. If this video meant something to you, hit that subscribe button, share it with 5 people who need to hear this, and leave a comment below. A real one. Tell me what hit you. Tell me what you're carrying that you're ready to put down. And tell me, what do you want us to talk about next? I'll be here.